Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al, week 8. And I've got a cage match for you. Another head-to-head battle. We won last week. We're on a 1-game winning streak. Trying to get off the schneid. That 4-game losing streak kind of sucked. But here we are in week 8. And I've got JJ Zachariason, the late round quarterback. You might know him from such shows as the Late Round Podcast or Living the Stream. He's here with us on the Smizzcast today, and we are going to draft head-to-head lineups against one another. We're going to do it on FanDuel, which is a total change for the way that we normally do things here, but it's a well-accepted change. If I want to have JJ on the show, we're going to play on FanDuel. That's what I want to do. I love being able to work with all the different friends of mine that I have throughout the fantasy football and daily fantasy communities. And I try to accommodate them as best I can, whether it's by moving the stream time or the video time, whether it's them picking the amount of money that we're playing for, or whether they want first and 1 or second and 2. Today, we are going to be playing for $100 to be donated by the loser of this cage match to the winner's charity. We are going to have myself picking first. JJ has chosen second and 2. And for those of you who have never watched this video before, this is different from any other head-to-head that you play in daily fantasy, because if you play head-to-heads, you realize that you're going to have a lot of overlap. The best value plays are probably going to be rostered by both teams. So what we do here is more of a snake draft, including the salaries. And if I pick somebody, he can't have them. If he picks somebody, I can't have them. So there's absolutely no overlap. We're going to get two very unique lineups from one another by hook or by crook. And we're going to try and just shoot it out every single Sunday. This is week 8. Let's bring in JJ. How you doing, brother?
What's up, man? I appreciate the intro. I hope that no one actually is listening to Living the Stream. I told some very embarrassing stories on yesterday's episode that I don't want to get into ever again in my life, but I appreciate you having me. I'm excited for this.
I can't wait to listen to you on 1.5x again this week.
Hopefully not the Late Round Podcast. You'll get through it in 3.5 minutes.
It's like it's a 6-second podcast if you listen to it. I can't live that 2x life. Do you live the 2x life when you listen to podcasts?
I live the 1x life. I don't
got all
consume...
the time in the world, huh?
Well, no. So here's the thing. I don't listen to a ton of podcasts. My podcast listening is mostly when I go on walks with my daughter, and I'm listening to I listen to Dak Shepard's Armchair Expert a lot, and just those kinds of easy listening shows, where he has either a celebrity on or an expert on. I'm not really consuming many fantasy podcasts and stuff. Sometimes it's bad, but sometimes it's nice to not be totally influenced throughout the week by what other people are saying.
I just don't have the time. I wish I could listen to more things like I used to be able to listen to throughout the week. Yeah. It's I definitely have to listen on 1.5. I can't even hear things on 2x. I don't catch anything. So it's just a waste of my time, but it is what it is. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you on social media, where they can find your work, and then we'll get to the draft.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at Lateroundqb. As you said, Smiz, I have the Late Round Podcast, which can be found anywhere podcasts can be found, and then Living the Stream as well. And then my written stuff is over on numberfire.com.
Fantastic. And go check out all that stuff, but don't follow JJ on Twitter. He has enough. It's enough already with the following JJ on Twitter. Congratulations on the 100,000 Twitter followers. No, don't put his Twitter account in the chat. No, it's enough already. God. Anyway, JJ's going to be playing for the V Foundation. Victory Over Cancer. Don't give up. Don't ever give up. A great charity. We're playing for $100 today. As always, I will be playing for No Kid Hungry.
Great charity.
I think so. Thank you for agreeing, for the agreeance there. Getting school lunches to kids that are food insecure throughout the year. If you want to donate and be a part of something bigger than yourself to either one of these great charities, there will be links right down below in the description. So as always, click something and hopefully click a charity. And all the ad revenue from this video every single week at the end of the year is also going to be donated to No Kid Hungry. So whatever I can win for them and whatever you guys can get through the videos and watch the ads and everything else, that money will also be donated. So big win for No Kid Hungry by the end of the year. So JJ has wanted me to pick first because there was a little flip-flopping before the show.
Yes, there was. My better part of my brain pushed forth and said that I should be picking second.
It's like, hey, wait. Make him go first.
Yeah.
So if I'm picking first, I'm going to go with a value play here. Okay. And it's going to be Myles Gaskin. And not because his name rhymes with Carol Baskin. and I can like sing that all weekend. But like, he's 5,700 here, guys. He has not had less than 4 targets in any game this season. So we know that he's got a good yardage and catch floor that we can bring with us. They're utilizing him a lot more in the running game. His rush percentage of those teams' rush of the Miami Dolphins rushes has been extremely high. The coaches are also very high on him, and he is the dude that they are going to go with. Now, I'm not going to go with the narratives of, well, it's a rookie quarterback. They're going to lean more on the running back. They're already leaning on him enough. 20 touches and at home is very much within the realm. I believe that he can get us there or close to our value expectation on volume alone. And if he happens to wander into the end zone, he's an absolute smash at 5,700. So I'm going to hang my hat on value to start. I love the fact that I've already got you a little bit tilted.
Mega
go to
tilt.
you for your first. Was he going to be one of your doubles?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that could have gone a couple different directions here, because there are a couple running backs that I'll probably take here, even though they're more expensive. That you could have maybe gone with.
There's a lot of running backs this week. There could be more, as you were saying, by Friday, as we get better injury news. But there's definitely some clear running back plays.
But what you did was smart, because there's not, I don't think that there's good enough alternatives down there at his price point at 5,700. I mean, there's just not a whole lot of guys that are in these like locked in workhorse roles, or especially locked in receiving work at the running back position. So I'm going to start off expensive, which is not really what I wanted to do. So you definitely already have me on tilt. I'm going to first go with Kamara at 9K.
He's good.
I know
that's my analysis there.
Yeah, he's a good running back. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of him before, but yeah, I mean, you're going to get the safety from him for sure. In the baseline, we know that his target share is incredibly high, and he can see 30% of the team's targets in any given week, and he does consistently. You know, the matchup isn't great. I have Chicago, according to my adjusted fantasy points method that I use. I have them as the 25th, ranked 25th in terms of adjusted fantasy points allowed.
They're
so
a
they're
tough
not.
Defense.
Yeah, it's not the easiest matchup in the world, but when it comes to Kamara, I also think that Chicago is at least somewhat beatable defensively still. Like they just haven't been like massively tested per se. I'm going to go with Kamara as the first one. And then the second one, I'm going to just scoot down a little bit and go with Kareem Hunt.
Okay.
I like building with stud running backs. And Kareem Hunt is in a spot where, again, you know, he doesn't have Nick Chubb. He's seeing a decent target share he did with Nick Chubb, but now on top of that, without Chubb, you have the higher running back rush share in a matchup against Vegas that, you know, that game could be fairly high scoring, or could end up being fairly high scoring. I don't mind it at all. You know, Derek Carr is playing really well, which is good. And obviously Baker Mayfield, after that week 1 game against Baltimore, and then after the first 5 attempts with OBJ in that game this past week, he's been playing fine. I mean, he's been pretty strong. And the other thing that I like is that Vegas doesn't have much of a pass rush, and Baker's been fine in clean pockets, which is why I actually like Baker last week too. You know, against Cincinnati, another team that now they lost Carlos Dunlap, but another team that, you know, doesn't get to the quarterback either. So I'm just going to build this foundation and hope and pray that I can find some cheap players elsewhere.
I think Kareem Hunt's one of the top running backs on the week, if not my favorite running back on the week. We talk about $5 running backs all the time. Guys that are playing at home, that are favored, have an expectation of 20 touches, get the inside the 5 work and work in the passing game. He checks off all 5 boxes. I think he's a great pick. I'm going to make a little bit of a riskier pick here. Okay? But it's not, there's methodology behind it. And whether it's narrative driven or not, I don't know yet. But it's going to be Jonathan Taylor. 1, the matchup is fantastic. 2, they're coming off of their bye week. 3, I expect him to see an uptick in terms of his snap share and therefore his rush percentage. Would I love to see a few more targets per game from him? Yes, but I think that because he's playing with Phillip Rivers as his quarterback, the only thing you need to get more targets as a running back when you're playing with Phil Rivers as your quarterback is to just play more snaps. And right now they're wasting snaps on Wilkins and wasting snaps on Nyheim Hines, that coming off the bye week, whether his issues have been pass protection because he's a rookie or whatever else, there was a lot on football Twitter about, oh, he's got terrible vision. Okay, maybe he doesn't have the best vision or whatever. I don't, however you want to quantify that. He should have gone for this hole or that hole. He's spending too much time. He's not downhill enough, whatever. He's still, by a massive margin, their best back in terms of talent, in terms of measurables, and in terms of something as simple and old school as yards per carry. When you have two other backs averaging like 2 yards a carry and one who you're saying has no vision but is averaging over 4 yards a carry, go with the more efficient guy. And to me, that's Jonathan Taylor. Whether he's a first hit and fall down guy, don't know. I do understand that a lot of his fantasy points have been propped up by touchdowns. However, they're playing the Lions, who have allowed, on goal-to-go situations, opposing teams to score 12 of 12 times. So touchdown equity, in my opinion, is here for Jonathan Taylor because he has gotten the most snaps inside the 5 on the Colts. He's way cheaper than any of the other volume running backs that have high touchdown expectation, and Detroit, one of the worst teams in the league in terms of defensive efficiency versus opposing running backs.
Yeah, I mean, I'm tilting even more because he would have probably been my flex. Like I said, there's Myles Gaskin at 5,700, who I think is an easy, dollar per point play.
Mm-hmm.
But you look up, and of course, if we knew that Aaron Jones wasn't playing, Jamal Williams would be right there. He probably would have been the 101.
He might have been one. Yeah, he'd been 1.1.
Yeah. But you have Jamal Williams there, and then it's Jonathan Taylor, and then it's like, okay, what do we do now?
Yeah,
what are we doing
like
here?
We're kind of looking, we're John Travolta .gif.
Yeah. It's not a great, I think that the high end running back plays, the Kareem Hunts and the Alvin Kamara, and then obviously Derrick Henry's in a smash spot.
Aaron Jones. Yeah.
All those guys are in good spots. But the problem is finding that, I like to play 3 running backs,
Same.
To fill in the flex over on FanDuel where you get that half point PPR.
Mm-hmm.
So, in an ideal world, I would have gotten one of those guys. So I have no idea right now, no idea what I'm going to do with that flex spot. So I might just let it go. I'm not even gonna worry about it right now at the running back position, because I am afraid of what happens. You know what? I might just do it though.
Ooh.
I might just do this.
Okay.
Because I think that there's enough value at other positions, namely wide receiver, that I can try this. I'm gonna go for Aaron Jones here.
Ooh. Talk me through it.
I'm just gonna go with the 3 guys and hope for the best. If Aaron Jones doesn't play, I'll have a lot of salary to work with at least, to find someone else to plug in there. But a really good spot. We know that, he has a high target share on the season, high running back rush share, fairly high running back rush share. He's been the goal line guy, good matchup. The last time we saw Minnesota and Green Bay go at it, Aaron Rodgers had a huge day. But Aaron Jones, I believe, still found the end zone in that game because he does every single week. I do believe too, there might be some weather concerns in this game. Maybe they lean a little bit more on the run. I don't always love that though, because you don't want, your offenses to be less efficient and then therefore not be able to find the end zone as much. But really this is a situation where if I were building this independent of you, Al, I would not be using, I think that it's a Kamara, Hunt, Gaskin type situation.
I think for a normal cash game build, that's where a lot of people are going to end up this week.
Right. And that's what, when I was building yesterday and today, that's sort of where I leaned. But the fact that we're doing it this way and I'm tilting, I'm just going to have to see if I can find some cheap wide receivers and just go with this 3-headed monster of Kamara, Jones, and Hunt.
I think you're going to be able to. I mean, there's enough cheap wide receivers and you still have a defense you could plug in, which I'm assuming is going to be plus or minus a couple hundred from 4K. To boost this salary per spot. Like you're fine, and you've got a ton of volume here. 20 plus touches from Kamara, 20 plus touches from Hunt, and 15 to 20 touches out of Aaron Jones, but really high efficiency and leverage touches there. So you have 3 absolute monsters running for your running back, and they all have dreads. So
they do.
You have a high dread correlation on your lineup.
That's really the real reason I went with Aaron Jones there.
The dreadnought lineup. All right, so I've got to find a different position. I don't need to fill a flex here. You can't pick wide receivers. You also can't pick tight ends. I'm not going to pick a tight end here. I was thinking about it though. I just want you to know that I was thinking about it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take, in my opinion, the best play on the board in this spot. I think there's enough value. Nah, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I don't have to, because I don't think you can get to him. So I'm gonna hold on there.
I know exactly what you're about to do.
I was about to do a thing. I was about to do a thing, but I'm not going to do the thing. I'm going to do a different thing here. And I'm going to take the floor of Tyler Boyd up against kind of a pass funnel defense in Tennessee. He's getting more than enough targets every single week, and Cincinnati throwing the ball enough every single week to feed all three wide receivers. Whether or not it's AJ Green, whether it's Tyler Boyd, whether it's T. Higgins, they're all getting service because they have to throw it 40 times because they're basically losing every single week, and they have a really talented quarterback. Give me Tyler Boyd at 6,400. I think he's one of the better values on the week. He's not an extreme value. He's not like a 5K wide receiver. I think there's a few guys down in there that we can go after. I'm going to go with Tyler Boyd. I'm going to lock in those 8+ targets and see where we can go with him at 6,400.
I dig it. So here's my logic. There's a lot of game theory with this, Al.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot.
Because I could have just taken Devontae Adams. Like, I can't even say his name. Like, you never say somebody's name at the draft. Like, no, somebody might take him if you say their name. I can totally say his name. You can't afford him.
Yeah, I'm not getting Devontae Adams.
No.
For the record. Although it's kind of nice though that we now know our builds and we can just kind of go from there. But because of that, I do think that I need to be a little bit aggressive here and go to the tight end position and find who I think is the best value this week and at the position. And it's Harrison Bryant. So I'm going to throw him in there and hope that the appendectomy is still healing for Austin Hooper. And here's the other thing too. Like, let's say in a world where Hooper, is he already ruled out? Hooper? He might already be ruled out.
I don't know, but I don't think he can come back. If he comes back on 7 days,
it would be surprising.
I'd be shocked.
It would be surprising. Yeah, it would be surprising. But Harrison Bryant this past week, he ran 5 more routes than David Njoku. You know, he's been running ahead of Njoku. I tweeted this before the game this past week. But he had been running ahead of Njoku. It was just a little bit weird because Njoku had the injury and then he was like coming back from the injury. So who knows if you know, the lack of routes run versus Harrison Bryant in that game that he came back was the result of them just like easing him back in. But what we saw very clearly this past week was that Bryant was the tight end that you should prefer over Njoku. They're both 5K this week. Bryant had 76% snap share, Njoku 60%. Bryant ran 17 routes and Njoku had 12. And then we obviously saw the impact of Bryant. You know, he was more productive. He found the end zone a couple of times. I don't think we should expect that. But no OBJ. I think we see a little bit more 12 personnel from this Cleveland team. So I'm into Harrison Bryant this week. I think he's a probably the best value tight end, and I need value definitely right now. I usually like spending down at that position too when I'm building on FanDuel. So I like Bryant at 5K.
He's not a player at that price that's going to kill you.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's generally what I look for at the tight end position, if we're being honest, because we know how difficult it can be to pay up for a Kittle. If you can pay up, that's great. Go for it, because you know that
especially this week against Seattle.
Especially this week, right? Yeah. But we know that I can't do that with my build right now. So I need to go down, and I can't risk you going and getting a Bryant right now, even though you likely wouldn't. Maybe you would. I don't know. I just can't risk it because I need that salary savings right now.
I mean, if you've watched any of the cage matches this year, I don't try and draft the optimal lineup. I try to inflict as much pain as I can on my opponent through the drafting process. And also on like last week, I made sure against Andy from the Fantasy Footballers to draft Kyler and Kirk.
Yeah,
I want you to watch the game with your favorite team and just be dreading everything that happens anytime Kyler drops back. So I locked up Kyler in like the second round just to make sure he felt as much pain as possible on Sunday.
I love it. Luckily, the Steelers have the Ravens this week, so go ahead and do that, Al.
Yeah, lock up all the Steelers. No, I'm not going to do that. But I can try and make you feel. I mean, right now you got 2 Browns on your lineup.
I do have that. Yes.
So that's pain enough.
Yes.
I'm going to take another wide receiver. I mentioned one team that has a really great matchup this week. Well, that's not right.
think I know where you might be going.
I'm going to go to wide receiver. I'm going to come all the way down here. Where is he? 5,800, 5,900?
5,900.
5,900. In the best matchup, period, ever, period, against wide receivers, period, Brandon Ayuk, with injuries abound for the San Francisco 49ers. And they're being creative around the goal line, getting like little jet sweeps for their wide receivers to get rushes around the goal line. Injury to Deebo Samuel. My issue is this. I was talking to Mike this morning to prep for our podcast tomorrow. And he said, talk to me about why you're thinking this about the 49ers. I said, well, not to compare Shanahan to Belichick, but we hate Belichick when he has a lot of toys in the pram, right? We want him to not have a whole bunch of toys to play with, because then he's like, okay, everybody gets 5 touches today. And then a couple years ago, you remember this, when like everybody got hurt on New England, and it was like the only 2 guys that were healthy were Gronk and Deion Lewis, and they like were 30 points a week for like 3 straight weeks because he had no other toys to play with. So we knew where the volume was going to go because it was really condensed. That seems to be where San Francisco is right now, with the 74 injuries that they have to their 87 running backs, and Deebo being out. There's a lot more of a condensed target tree. I think that they're, Bourne might be in play this week as well, and probably for cheaper, but Ayuk to me looks like the guy who is most explosive and should see against Seattle in a game that they're going to have to score 30 if they're going to try and win this one. A lot more usage, a lot more efficiency, and he's sub 6K.
Yeah, I dig him a lot. I think that he's a go-to value this week. Seattle has been absolutely horrendous against wide receivers this season. I mean, they're like, at one point they were like 500 yards ahead of the team that was in second in terms of yards allowed.
It was like 20 points on FanDuel different. It was like they were giving up X amount of points to wide receivers, and the next best team, it was like 60, and the next best team was like 40.
Here's a good, so I work with adjusted fantasy points allowed, where it just looks at how many points they're allowing per game versus how many points their opponents have allowed or have scored per game. And then you just find the difference between the two.
Yeah.
So every week I look at this, I think that Seattle's broken. Like something's wrong with my spreadsheet. But Seattle this season, so the team in second in terms of adjusted fantasy points allowed to wide receivers is Cleveland. Okay. Cleveland has allowed 10 more points as a team. So to team wide receivers in full PPR to the wide receiver position than those teams have scored on average each year. In other words, this week, they're going up against Vegas. And so we would expect Vegas wide receivers as a group to score 10 more points PPR wise than they otherwise would in an average matchup. Seattle is at 19.5.
That's high.
So they're literally almost double more than what Cleveland's doing in terms of allowing fantasy points. So yeah, it's obviously a good matchup there for Brandon Ayuk. All right. So let's see here. I don't really care to go to the quarterback position right now because I think there's a couple pivots and
there's a lot. There's so many plays between 7 and 8K.
Yeah.
At like quarterback on FanDuel this week.
Yeah. And that's going to be the direction I have to go. So I'm going to just not do that. I'm going to probably go to the wide receiver position here. I don't mind one value I like a lot this week is Rashard Higgins, but I have so many Browns in my lineup that going him right now.
Go another Brown. Come on.
Is probably not the ideal build. There's another guy that I think is interesting. That's fairly cheap, but I'm going to just go with a fairly average priced wide receiver. You have Tyler Boyd. I'm going to go with T Higgins. Similar logic that you just used. One thing I will say about Boyd versus Higgins that I think is somewhat interesting. So I look at slot yards allowed. And last week we saw Juju do a lot of work against Tennessee, which would make you feel pretty good about Boyd probably. The slot numbers allowed. I don't think at this point in the season it's the most predictive thing in the world, but Tennessee heading into last week was pretty good against slot receivers. And then this past week, Juju does what he did. Tyler Boyd, though, just gets fed so consistently that it makes total sense to go that way. T. Higgins, then, the fear, he had 4 straight weeks of a 20% target share or better. And then last week, it was just a little over 10%. So there's some fear, some uncertainty. AJ Green's being involved a little bit more in that offense. That's a little bit scary. But I think that this game could be fairly high scoring. Cincinnati also just lost Dunlap. So there's no pass. I mean, Cincinnati had the worst pass rush anyway in the NFL. So I think that Tennessee's going to be able to do whatever they want on them. And then we're going to see a little bit of catch up and see them keep pace. And Cincinnati's been one of the most pass heavy teams in football this year. So even if Higgins sees a 15% target share in this game, that's still probably going to be like 7-ish targets or so. So I'm into Higgins at 6K, and that's kind of where I need to spend anyway, given my current build. So I'm going to go with him.
I like Higgins a lot. Like, I've been playing him.
Yeah, me too.
Every week for the last 3-4 weeks. Like, and it feels like the field is finally catching up on him because he's been underpriced and very consistent in terms of his usage and his targets, and like he's a big body, and so he's so used around the goal line as well. So like he finds his way into the end zone a lot. So clearly it's going to be an AJ Green week, right?
Yeah,
since we both have different Cincinnati receivers.
So just go with Green. Just add
AJ Green 2 touchdowns incoming, unquestionably. We both have quarterbacks left. You don't have a tight end.
No, I've heard.
Or you have a tight end, so I don't need to pick tight end. You also have a flex. I could try and block you with a wide receiver. I can basically get, I think, the guys that I want with the salary that's remaining. Like, ideally, the guys that I want with the salary that's remaining. I haven't even plugged it in yet. I could take a defense off the board here just to kind of try and block you from getting what I think could be the best defense that's out there for the price. And I'm going to do that.
Oh, you are so awful as a human being. Looking back, going T didn't make any sense because you already had Boyd anyway.
See, I love the live tilt that this causes.
That's because I'm not thinking about this being an actual draft. I'm just like, yeah, I'm going to fill it with T Higgins. Of course I am.
So
that's okay.
The route that I'm going to go here, and maybe it's not optimal, right? But I want to lock in a little bit of value on defense. We talk about using defense to punt. We want teams that are going to be theoretically playing from ahead that can pressure a quarterback, and quarterbacks that are going to make mistakes, whether it's by taking sacks or throwing interceptions. So I'm going to lock in the Saints at 3,600 here, going to Chicago to play against who cares at quarterback, whether it's going to be Foles or Trubensky. I don't know which one's going to be there, and either one I'm fine with turnover potential as well as sacks coming off of the short week against the Rams. I now have, let's see what I have left because it's always hidden behind the camera. I've got about 7,700 per player remaining, 31. I think that's more than enough for me to do the things that I kind of want to do with the rest of this lineup.
Yeah, I have 5,800 to players.
That's less.
Yeah, that's
analytics. That was me using analytics. See, that 5,800 less than 7,700.
The other thing too is I have Kamara, so I really wanted to just have that correlation in this lineup.
Okay, this is a question that's asked a lot, and I want you to talk about because you're a sharp dude. How heavy on the correlation matrix? How important is the quarterback or is the running back defense correlation?
I'd say it depends on the slate. Last week's slate didn't matter. Like it was too difficult to do. The way that I look at it is it's good to have, but you should lean into the running back before the defense, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So like if you're not, like last week's a perfect example because not a lot of people were playing CEH in that spot, but the Kansas City defense was a good play objectively, right? So you're not just going to play CEH because you're playing the Kansas City defense because we know there's so much volatility on the defensive side. And last week too, I think there was a little bit more, last week that we had so many high scoring game potentials and such too, that you just didn't feel that great about a lot of the defenses. But yeah, I mean, I think it's important. I think it's a thing, we obviously we want those positive game scripts. We want them to get more carries, et cetera, et cetera. And I would argue it matters more on this platform too, because on FanDuel, because you don't have like the catch up mode in the same way, getting those cheap full PPR points from the running backs. But I think that the general idea is to lean into the running back first, get your running backs there. If you have an opportunity, because I still have an opportunity with my lineup to correlate, because you already picked your defense. I'm going to pick Green Bay eventually because I like Green Bay against Minnesota. I think the matchup's fine. And then I can still get that correlation with Aaron Jones, right?
I've got like 2-3 sub 4K defenses.
Yeah.
So I thought that they were the best one just because Foles has been bad.
They're a very safe go-to defense this week. And again, since Kamara is going to be a high rostered guy, and he's in my lineup, I think they're a great play for my lineup specifically. It was really dumb for me to go T Higgins. But I at least can, I know that I can just sit back now, and I know that I can at least like plug Green Bay into my lineup and sort of work around that, knowing that I'll get them. And then at the quarterback position, I'm assuming that you're going to go a certain direction, so I don't have to go there. So I'm at wide receiver. I need cheap wide receivers. I'm probably going to leave salary on the table with my current build. That's just how it goes. Because you made me tilt so hard. So there's a couple directions I could go here.
Okay. Talk us through it. You know which defense you want. You got quarterback, 2 receivers, and 5,800 each.
Yeah. Yeah, right. So if I plug in the Packers defense, I have 6,400 each.
Okay.
For each position. But I know that I need a quarterback, so I'm just gonna, if I plug in a dummy mid 7K quarterback, then I have 5,850 for 2 wide receivers. The problem is, I like I said, I like Rashard Higgins, and I would probably throw Rashard Higgins in here with in a vacuum, but I don't want to do that with Harrison Bryant and Kareem Hunt there in this lineup. So there's a few guys though that I still don't mind. In this, I mean, the 5,500 to 6K range, I think that we've got, we got Ayuk, who is a top value. T Higgins we threw in there, who I think is a good value. And then Rashard Higgins is the other guy. I'm going to take a little bit of a chance here. I'm going to go with Hollywood Brown.
Ooh.
So the main reason behind this is to hedge my fandom. No, I'm just kidding. So Hollywood has the peripherals. We know that, right? The peripherals aren't the problem. It's the passing volume that's an issue. We don't know what that is going to look like week in and week out. And the thing the matchup isn't on paper the best in the world. It's also not the worst if you look at how the Steelers have defended wide receivers in just terms of fantasy points scored. I don't like this game environment really at all. I think it's hard to, just given the way that the defenses are playing. Baltimore's coming off a bye, and I do worry about Baltimore's defense just crushing the Steelers in this game. But I will say one of the more interesting pieces of Hollywood Brown this week is that Pittsburgh's one of the worst teams in giving up 15 plus air yard throw completions. They've given up a lot of big plays this year.
They're very vulnerable deep.
Yeah. And we saw that with like Travis Fulgham against, when they faced Philadelphia. We saw that even last week with AJ Brown a bit. So I don't mind Hollywood at this price point. And I actually think, from a tournament perspective too, I think he's a great pivot off of Ayuk. If you think that, if you think that the percent rostered is going to be pretty high for Ayuk because of that matchup, because of Debo being out, which is very, very valid. I mean, like we've said, he's a great play. Being the same exact price point, Hollywood Brown's pretty intriguing. We know that he has a ceiling, given what he can do. So I'm going to go with Hollywood, lock that in. And then the problem, with my remaining salary is I'm probably going to just eat like $300 to $500, I would assume. But even still, I think Hollywood's the right play for this build right now.
That might work out for you by the time the weekend gets here. Yeah. I'm going to do, let's see. I don't need to pick a tight end. I don't need to pick my flex. The only thing you could disrupt me at is quarterback. So I'm going to take my quarterback here. It's going to be Joey B. Joe Burrow. 300-yard expectation pretty much every week with the amount of times that he throws the ball. We spoke last week about he should see some positive regression or some regression to the mean in a positive way, however you want to phrase it so that people can understand. You are the king of regression, by the way, JJ. I don't know if anybody, yeah, sure. You're the one who talks most about regression in the most understandable way in the off season.
Oh, thank you.
In my opinion, of everybody who does analysis, right?
Thank you.
So to me, you're the king of regression talk. In season, though, Joe Burrow saw 3 touchdowns last week. You can't throw it as many times as he throws it, and you can't throw for as many yards and as many completions as he throws for, and only have and have 3 games with no touchdown receptions. His receivers were getting touchdown unlucky. I don't think that is going to sustain for the rest of the year with as many times as he is forced to throw. And I think he's actually good, and as good as he is, that should result in at least one, if not multiple touchdowns in the majority of games for the rest of the way. He also has the ability they give him the opportunity once they get inside the 2 on sneaks. He has 3 rushing touchdowns so far this year. He's not somebody that I think is going to bring me a solid rushing floor every week, but he does bring you that extra ceiling potential because of his sneak ability once they get close. I have a little bit of correlation with Tyler Boyd. Not that that's necessary in a cash game, but I kind of play this a little bit more tournament wise. And I think that if it was between him or Tannehill, I could go either way there. They're both really close to me in terms of projection and in terms of price. So like, and you were speaking about wide receivers. I'll talk about it in a little bit, but I think there's another receiver in that range. Not that I have to go to him here, but I think Henry Ruggs is another really good play at that high 55 to 6K range for the Raiders.
Yeah, I do too. He was someone I was looking at. The other two, so I have a wide receiver spot. I won't get defense and quarterback right now because you already did, so it doesn't make any sense for me to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I learned from my T. Higgins mistake
you're going wide receiver here
to actually care about what you're saying. But yeah, so I don't mind Ruggs either in that spot. The other guy who I think is interesting, and I wish that we knew more about the John Brown situation. But Cole Beasley is kind of interesting at $5,300. And the reason I say that is less about the matchup per se, but New England has allowed the highest percentage of targets to go to the slot this year. 40% of their targets allowed have gone to that area of the field, which is the highest in the league. And so I'm looking between him and Ruggs right now. And the main reason I think I might lean Ruggs is because of the build that I currently have, and just getting that correlation and just having some fun with it. But you know, having both Ruggs and Hollywood in my lineup is incredibly volatile, and
it's a 2-man GPP
and scaring the living crap out of me. So I don't know what I'm gonna do here. You know, I might just go and pick my defense and think about it a little bit.
Yeah, you can check it back to me. That's just fine.
Yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to pick Green Bay.
Okay. Green Bay, what is their salary so I can find them quickly? 4,000.
4K.
Got it.
4K.
Okay. Checks it back to me, 6,700 remaining. We talked about where the quarterback pricing is, 13.4 left for JJ overall. You can't stop me on any 3 of these picks. I'm just going to say that. So I'm going to take the wide receiver first. I'm going to go with AJ Brown because he's a grown-ass man. Going up against, you know, in this matchup, I get a little bit of a bring-back player with my Boyd Burrow stack. Henry's in play. Brown's in play. Jonnu's in play. And AJ Brown, in the games that he has been healthy this year, has seen a very healthy amount of targets. And to me, that's what's most important. He was a regression candidate in the offseason, that he couldn't do the things as often as he did them last year, but that can be overweighted by the fact that he was going to play a much higher volume of snaps and see a much more consistent volume of targets, which he has done. And they lean on him around the goal line. He's a matchup mismatch every single time on the outside, regardless of which cornerback is lined up on the other side of him. And he also has that big splash ability, kind of like Odell used to have. Rip Odell's knee right now, but like, of taking a 6-yard slant 60 yards to the house and showing everybody on the other team his heels and elbows. So AJ Brown is the play for me at 7,500. I have 8K remaining for a tight end and a flex.
So I am I'm going to lock in my quarterback now. You just took AJ Brown. I'm going to take Ryan Tannehill.
I knew that they were the 2 QBs.
Yeah, I mean, I figured as much. I was going to probably go Burrow because I got Higgins, but, you know, I'm still getting a semi-correlated play with Tannehill and Higgins. I mean, it's not a stack, obviously, but, you know, it's fine enough since we're playing more of a cash game.
I can't pick your wide receiver, so you can make your last pick here. Well, I can, but it would be stupid.
Right, it wouldn't make any sense. So again, this is going between Ruggs and Beasley.
You bought yourself 2 extra minutes here between Ruggs and Beasley. What
I did.
decision
I'm
did
just
you
gonna
make?
go. I'm just gonna go DGAF because it's more like, why not just root on this giant Henry Ruggs play, and just go with Ruggs. I'm going to go with Ruggs. I think Beasley is a safer play. He's going to get you, a floor of probably 8 or 9 points, but I think Ruggs.
But there is no 30-point possibility when you play Cole Beasley, and there is when you play Henry Ruggs.
Yeah, and then on top of that, Ruggs, I have Kareem Hunt and Harrison Bryant in this lineup, so that's even more fun from a GPP standpoint. Even though we're playing cash, it's even more fun to get that correlation going. So I'm gonna go with Henry Ruggs as the last spot and leave $200 on the table.
You almost have to do that when you have Aaron Jones, Kareem Hunt, and Alvin Kamara in the lineup. Like you
that's the other
plays.
Exactly. That's the other reason why I kind of went that direction, is because I know I'm going to get a great floor from those 3 running backs. So get
Boomer bust it. If one of those receivers has a 25 plus FanDuel day, you're smashed.
And I think Higgins is a fairly high floor play too. I don't think that it's, even last week, he's a 10% target share. He still paid off. Obviously, he finds the end zone towards the end of the game, but he still pays off. Whereas Hollywood, higher floor than Ruggs. Ruggs is definitely the most volatile, but I think that given the running back situation, I feel decent about it.
All right, so Ryan Tannehill, Alvin Kamara, Kareem Hunt, T. Higgins, Marquise Brown, Henry Ruggs, Harrison Bryant, Aaron Jones, and correlated with the Packers defense. Coming back to me, I have 16,000 remaining. Well, Devontae Adams is 9,100.
He's pretty good.
He's a good player. Yeah. Can I afford Waller? And can I afford Devontae? Seems that I can. I'm going to go with Darren Waller and Devontae Adams to round out this lineup. Joe Burrow, Myles Gaskin, Jonathan Taylor, Tyler Boyd, Brandon Ayuk, A.J. Brown, Darren Waller, Devontae Adams, New Orleans Saints defense to round out this FanDuel lineup. Why don't you leave us a comment down below and let us know who you think is going to win, YouTube, because you guys have been wrong every single week of the year. So let us know who you think is going to win so we'll know who actually is going to win on the other side. Thank you guys for watching. Donate to the charities. Click a damn thing. Look out for another video right here.
He's a legend.